Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of The Fifth Meeple. We're a group of diverse friends who offer our takes on the latest and greatest board games to hit our table. Each of us has a different tag that we identify ourselves by based on our personalities and our play styles. I'm your host, Daniela, the goofy noob, and I am joined today by the intellectual introvert.
Hi, everyone. This is Chris.
And the collector.
Hey, this is David.
All right, guys, today's episode is all about engine building with a special nod to Earth Day. We'll start by becoming one with nature as we discuss Wingspan, where we act as avian admirers aiming to attract a fine flurry of feathered friends to our network of nature preserves. After that, we scour the globe and discovered Earth, forming a foundation of flora and fauna and filling our island with sprouts, stalks, stumps, shrubs, and shrooms. And finally, because we just can't help ourselves, we'll determine who is cock of the walk as we face these games against each other in our ultimate showdown, the battle of the funnest. But before we get into all of those festivities, David, what is our topic of discussion for today?
Okay, so this topic for today, we're going to talk about luck in games. And how much luck do you actually like in games? I know some people like zero luck, others like a lot of luck. And so I thought it'd be an interesting question to ask, like, how much luck are you actually looking for when you go play a game?
I'll start by saying I think there's a different. I'm sitting here thinking of luck and randomness. I think they're different, and I would answer differently. I like randomness as long as there's a way for me to mitigate it. Luck can irritate me because if it's so much luck that it's like, okay, it's not the person who wins the game isn't who played it best. It's just who got luckiest, so to speak. Then I'm just not a fan of those types of games. So from that standpoint, not a big fan.
Okay, yeah, I guess we could say luck or randomness. I guess I was referring to them probably interchangeably. So I could see what you're saying on that, Chris.
Yeah, like one and the same. I'm trying to think of maybe some examples of luck versus randomness. Can you think of any off the top
I'm
of your
thinking
heads?
like, okay, I'm playing a game and I need to figure out if I'm successful, and I roll a die, and it's completely determined on what do I roll, as opposed to, okay, something comes out at random that I have to deal with, but then I have to figure out how to deal with it. So I like the second one where maybe luck or randomness comes out and then I have to react, as opposed to, okay, it's just going to be luck whether something succeeds or not, whether I score or not. Not a big fan of the latter.
Okay. I think I enjoy both of the distinguishing point of that, what you're talking about there, because when we do play dice a lot, I feel like I've been throwing good dice lately, so maybe that's kind of where I like that part of the game. But I can see what you're saying, and it doesn't bother me. I do like games with either randomness or luck or whatever we're talking about. So I think it's one of those things that you have to adapt, kind of like I think you were just saying, Chris, and you can kind of maybe shuffle a little bit with the randomness and have a plan, and then maybe divert to another plan based on what is coming out and how it's being filled in the game.
I mean, do you think luck and randomness, right? Do you think that's the great equalizer, though, when we play games, as far as, you have, newer people joining, a gaming group? Do you think that helps to even out a game sometimes versus people, like if you just have a very much skill-based game that, the newbies, or noobs as we like to call them, They don't really necessarily have a chance until they learn the game and play it more if you had, 10 or 15 plays on them.
I think we've seen that maybe with more of the bad games. Like we had been talking about Quacks a lot lately. That definitely, you can get new people in that and playing, and it's very chancy, and they can come and play, and it's very easy, right? They can know when to stop. It's a very easy thing for them to, I think, build upon. Now, if you're playing something like El Grande, where it's the dice tower, you're having different things come out, that's one piece of the larger game that would be a harder teach to someone new. So that's kind of, it's... Yeah, I think what you're saying is valid. When you have something super chancy, super luck, super whatever it rolls or however it comes out is the whole game. Yeah, but if it's just one piece of a broader game, then it is harder to teach.
But I think Quacks is a great example of what I was talking about. There's certainly a lot of luck there, right? You can't, unless you're cheating, you can't control what comes out of your bag, but you can control what goes in it, right? And so True. I can say, okay, there's a certain number of white chits that are going to be in there, but how I pair those with what I ultimately buy when it's my turn can help to mitigate what might happen. And so I'm okay with that. Again, I don't want it to rule the game. I'm okay with it being part of the game.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think that I like playing games with a little bit of luck or randomness in there. I think that if you just play strictly a skill-based game, think of games like Go or chess, for instance, there's not really a lot of luck there. It's just based off your skill level. The farther I get into board gaming, I think I play games for that reason, that there's always a little bit of chance or a little bit of luck in a game. And I think that's what makes it fun, because you don't always know the outcome. And it gives you, if somebody's really good at the game, it gives you maybe a little bit of a, oh, I have a chance. I might not be a good chance, might only be 5%, but I still have a chance where, if you go up against somebody that plays chess and is grandmaster, your chances of beating them are probably zero. Every time they play. So,
mine are always zero. So absolutely. No, I do like that. And I agree. That is a component of a game that I do like, and I would go sit at a table that had that type of mechanism for sure.
I also think that again, I'm not totally against luck. I like it in a certain amount. And I think luck is a lot of times where the big fun moments come from. We talked a couple of weeks ago and last week as well about Quacks of Quellenberg, and you brought it up earlier. And when that chit comes out of the bag, that's the fun part. When you roll that die, and you don't know what you're going to get, seeing what it is, that's the aha, as opposed to, okay, I've calculated this 37 ways, I'm now going to take my move. So certainly I think more fun comes from the luck aspect.
Yeah, and especially when you're going through a game and you're planning, and somebody does something like a move or two ahead of you, and then that plan just goes out the window. That is super frustrating. Yep. So,
yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you guys. Appreciate that conversation. If you'd like to get in on this conversation, feel free to join us on Instagram or send us an email.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, David. So those are, again, our opinions on luck, randomness, however you want to call it. But we'd love to get to know what all of you guys out there do have to say, just like David said. So we'll get, did we get it right? Do you guys like luck? Do you not like luck? Did we get something wrong? We had a friend certainly tell us recently that we got a couple things wrong in our Meeple Madness, which was hilarious. So thank you, Pete, for those comments. But yeah, let us know by sending us an email if you want at thefifthmeeple@gmail.com. We'd also invite you to take a second to hit the subscribe button so you just never miss a show, and we'd love to have you follow us on Instagram at Fifth Meeple, jump into our BGG guild, or check us out on our website at thefifthmeeple.com. I also want to make a special plea and ask all of you out there, if you are listening to us regularly, please rate us on Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. This is the most effective way to help boost us in the podcast algorithms and get us a little more exposure. And of course, thanks as always for listening. All right, we're going to take a really short break here to fill up our bird feeders. And then when we return, we'll get into our thoughts on Wingspan.
Wingspan is a 1 to 5 player card-driven engine building game where you are a bird enthusiast, seeking to attract the best birds to your network of wildlife reserves. On your turn, you can take one of 4 different actions. In the forest, you can gain food by drafting dice from a birdhouse-shaped dice tower. In the grasslands, you can lay eggs on your birds, limited by the size of their nests. In the wetlands, you can draw bird cards into your hand either randomly from a deck or from a face-up market, and those all feed into the 4th action, playing a bird from your hand into one of your habitats. When you do that, you have to pay a certain amount of food and spend a certain amount of eggs, and each bird can only live in certain types of habitats. Those birds then do 3 things for you. First, they earn you game end points. Second, they strengthen your actions, providing more food, eggs, or cards per action. And finally, most of the birds have one-time or recurring powers that are activated at various points in the game. The game consists of 4 rounds, with bonuses earned at the end of each round that vary from game to game. Players earn points from those round-end bonuses, from the birds they played in their habitats, from the eggs on their board, from their special power actions, and from any personal bonuses they've collected. The person with the most points wins the game and will likely tweet about their victory. There are a number of different expansions available, but we'll primarily be talking about the base game today. Wingspan was designed by Elizabeth Hargrave, is published by Stonemaier Games, and first flew onto the scene in 2019.
All right. Thanks for that awesome summary there, Chris. So let's get right into Wingspan. Let's talk about some of the things, anywhere from the art to the game to our best moments. What do we really like about this game?
I like the fact that to me it's an understandable and at least mostly controllable engine. It was one of the first engine builders that for me I was able to really grasp my head around and say, okay, this is how that engine works. This is how you get it running. I was relatively quickly able to look at it and say, okay, these birds are on there. This is the one that'll work best with what I've been building in my habitat. And so I thought it has some complexity in there. There are good mechanisms, but they were, at least for me, relatively easy to grasp.
Yeah, for me, I think it's, the first time I ever saw this game, I saw the components of the game sitting on a table. And I remember looking at that game and being like, oh, I would like to play that. Maybe it's because of the eggs or just, how colorful it kind of was at the time. I think most of the board games, they're getting a better job at being colorful and not just being in your beige and your grays and stuff like that. But for a long time, I think a lot of the games that I played, were more simple, more basic, but the boards didn't really pop out. And I remember seeing this game on the table and, just being attracted by all the colors that were there at first, just to even draw me in. I didn't know anything about it other than, it had birds, but that's kind of what drew me in originally play Wingspan.
Yeah, I agree with that, David. I think the theme overall, the color scheme, everything is done really beautifully on it. There's a lot of great colors that mesh with each other. Obviously, the birds that are on the cards are very colorful. They're clean cards, right? They're simple to see and read and see everything that's on them. But I also agree with what you said, Chris, about the ease of this game. Laid out on the table, it's beautiful. It looks a little intimidating because there are a lot of cards or a lot of things going on. But at the same time, I do agree that it is an easy engine building game to, I think, get into engine builders.
Yeah, and I'll just agree too as far as the components, not just the look, but the components too, David. I mean, the eggs are cool, and even if you're not someone that's into games, I know this is known as a game that people will see and say, okay, that looks really cool, like really great table presence. And so I think a couple of those components, the eggs, and then also obviously the bird feeder dice tower, I think is a pretty cool component as well.
Yeah, I wrote down the bird feeder as well, even though it's a little, when you're playing it, you're trying to roll the right things. But yeah, the bird feeder is actually a really cool idea of what's coming out and what's being exposed for your birds that you need.
Yeah, and to go kind of piggyback off what you guys are saying, I think the player mat that actually came with this game originally, I know you can get souped up ones on Etsy and stuff nowadays, but the original player boards that everybody got, I think also helped for the teachability of this game because, like Chris was saying, it is one of the first kind of like engine builders that I felt like I could teach it and people would grasp what it is. And I think part of it was the simplicity, but also the way they laid out their player mat that everybody had. Is just very, here's the 3 different lanes and you got to go down the lanes and, just everybody's seen a grid in their life. And I think that, just the way they laid it out was a really well done way to get somebody into this hobby.
Mm-hmm. I think too, one of my best moments when I'm playing this game really is the goal board. I really like the past couple of times that we had played, we had different goals. And I think everybody really worked to try and get something during each phase or each season on those goal boards. And that was, it was a simple goal, but something that could be attained. But sometimes you did miss it, because you may not always be pulling the right bird cards. So I like the goal card on this as well, this game.
Yeah, and I like that you pointed out that they're simple goals, right? It doesn't mean they're simple to get, but they're simple to grasp.
Correct.
And I'm thinking back to, I think we played Barrage. We got through it once, right? And some of us just didn't want to play it again. But that had those same things. You knew what that round 4 goal was. But to be able to plan far enough ahead to do that was possible, but it was difficult. Mm-hmm. I feel like with Wingspan, you see all 4 of them, and you can be building towards that late goal and still try to be accomplishing your early goals and things like that. So
right, even in round 1.
Very graspable and manageable.
Yeah, I would even say like the private goals you get too. I loved how I feel like this was the first game where I actually saw in there that there was a percentage. So, a lot of times I'll get gold cards and I'll play a new game. And if they're private gold cards, I'll look at them and I'll have no clue as to how hard it is to obtain a certain thing. With Wingspan, it might say, hey, collect all these different birds that have this name in it, but it'll give you underneath it normally a percentage of how many of those cards have that bird. So it could be, say, 27%. So it gives you an idea of maybe how hard it is to get it. And it kind of varies by points too. I feel like the less percentage it is, the harder the points are. I mean, the more points it gives you. But at the same time, you have some sort of an idea. And I think that I wish more games would implement this because I feel like I play a lot of games where I get a private goal card and I have no clue if it's my first time playing, whether this is a hard, easy, medium, goal to achieve or not. And I think that, more people should take what Wingspan kind of did on that level and, bring it into other games that are using that same type of, goal mechanism.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, I wonder, there are a lot of expansions for this game. And typically you take the cards from the new expansion, mix them with the old one. And I'm wondering if, those percentages now just got rocked out. Mm-hmm. And you're looking at, there's 20% and it's not 20% anymore. And I'm wondering if that's why a lot of others don't do that, because it is such a great idea. It's easy to implement, but I wonder if it falls apart once you start putting different expansions in there.
That's true. I don't know. I've never played a Wingspan expansion, so that's probably my downfall right there.
Yeah, I have the Oceania expansion. I haven't tried it yet. I've got it all punched out and ready to go, but haven't given it a go.
And as far as what you said, David, about the percentages and the gold cards, I think it was funny. I think the last time we played at your house, Chris, a couple of us had read our personal goals, like not wrong, but the wording was a little bit like, okay, if I have this bird, does it include that number of points or whatever on the actual bird card that you needed to get, or was it lower? So there was a couple times, I think me and I think maybe Pete as well. I think both of us read one of our goal cards, like just a little goofy. So take your time and read the goal cards. And if you have a question, just ask someone next to you. So you are trying to get those goal cards done and solved for.
Yeah, I think yours was like you have to have a certain number of birds that are worth 2 or less points or less than 2 points or something like that. And it was 2 or less is very different than less than 2.
Yeah. So did the twos count? Whatever it was. Whatever. I don't know. Idiot noob here over here trying to figure this out. So
one of the last things I really like about this game, and maybe it was just because, I'm looking back and kind of seeing how the mechanics play, but I feel like it was the first time that I actually played like a card-driven game where I am putting stuff on cards, right, and teaching people how to do that, because I think it was enlightening for a lot of people to be like, oh, I could put eggs on different cards, but then also the tuck ability, where you're tucking cards underneath to score points. I don't think I had really seen that up until I played the game like this. And I don't think a lot of people that I taught to, it kind of just opened their eyes to what a modern board game can be, especially if it doesn't have like a main board that everybody's on, but you have your own individual board. And I'm just trying to think of, some of the ways that it really stood out, going back in the day of all the plays I've had with this. But reasons why people may really like this is because it did different things that kind of shook the genre, I want to say, at the time. Because I have people that I know in my life, and I know if you're listening right now, you know who you are. But, this is like your all-time favorite game. And, to me, it's not mine, but I could see why, somebody would fall in love with this, especially when Chris was saying they have so many expansions and stuff like this. There's a reason for that.
All right, that was a great discussion. Let's move on to some of the things that maybe just don't land for us in Wingspan, or maybe a couple frustrations for us. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I guess one of the things that, I don't know if it's a frustration, but it's something that anytime I play the actual, table version, it comes up. And that is, there are certain abilities of cards that once per turn or once between turns, you can do this. And the game gives you absolutely nothing to keep track of that. And you just have to remember, okay, well, did I do that? And was it before my turn or after my turn? Such a simple thing to just give me some tokens that say available or activated or something like that, that comes up every game we play. And someone's sitting there going, I don't know if I used this already or not. So.
Or really when the turn order changes and then you kind of trying to remember who was the beginning and did I do it in this turn? Because a couple times in the last game we played, it was when the turn order did change and you had the token, it was, wait, did I do that action that you're just talking about in that turn? Or now is it a new turn? Simple enough, but I agree with you what you're saying there. David, how about you?
Ooh, this is tough. I have a couple of things, but I think the first one that stands out to me is the bird feeder itself and trying to acquire food. I feel like that could be a really frustrating part of the game if you're looking for a certain food, and just how that that mechanism resets itself is it has to be all of one type, or to roll the dice again. And to me, I'm always waiting for food, but somehow I'm always just stuck on that point in the game. Maybe it's just because I play this game very badly, but at the same time, like, it's just always frustrating. I just remember it. I need food, but if I go there's no food that I actually want from that bird feeder, but I can't re-roll it. There's no mechanism that just allows me to kind of do that I can remember, unless I take other food that I actually don't want to acquire. And it was always just a frustrating part of the game for me personally. But
yeah, and I think the way the game tries to get around that is you can substitute 2 of any for one type of food. It's a little extra cost, but you can do that. And again, you pay for it. It's all about luck, Dave. We were talking earlier about luck. Well, that's a little bit of luck, and you got to figure out how to mitigate it. But I also think maybe we need to play my expansion, because part of that expansion is there's a new food, and it's nectar. And I haven't gone through all the rules, but I think there may be some sort of wild food aspect to the nectar that I need to explore. But maybe that would help address one of what you're talking about there, frustration.
Well, if any of you guys understand the nectar, leave us a comment on that. That'd be interesting to hear from you guys. If you guys really like this game and play it, and maybe you can give us some other pointers for that bird feeder, or it is though too, David, getting 2 food for 1. That stinks, because sometimes you're not getting as much food as you need to throughout the game.
So get a different bird.
Well, I guess that leads me to one of my frustrations on this. Overall, again, beautiful game, beautiful layout, but I'm just not a bird enthusiast. So when I'm playing this, is we're all sitting around laughing, reading the bird cards, right? Like that's just something that's like hilarious in this game. You're like, oh, I got the spotted, whatever over in
It's a spotted booby.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
yeah, the blue-footed booby or something like that. Yeah, and that's a fun part of the game that everybody's like, oh, I got that bird. It's like you didn't even know what that bird was or want it, but birds and me, the theme for me overall just doesn't land. Like when I'm looking at it, I'm like, I really don't care. I don't want that bird. I don't want that bird. I want that bird. So when the cards are laying out, or you're able to draw cards and put them into your hands, like I could care less. Like, so you're reading this stuff around it, but I guess it's one of the things that just doesn't draw me to the game and make me want to play it. Maybe if it was something else, I don't know.
Like dragons or something.
Well, they have that. What is the Wingspan? Yeah, I'll try that one. I'll see if that one lands for me. But
that's an interesting point, though, because a lot of people say that it is so attractive because, hey, it's something people can relate to. And people who do like nature, which they have plenty to choose from with respect to games, though, hey, this is something very easy to relate to. And again, they're not goofy, crazy pictures of birds. They're actual pictures or beautiful paintings of birds. And so it's interesting. It all depends on what you like and what you don't, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me, it's just, again, it's not a frustration. It's just, for me, personal preference. I just don't like birds.
But the other thing that allows you the game to do, though, is one of the aspects that comes into play every once in a while is what's the wingspan of a bird, and it's the actual wingspan of the actual bird that's on that card that's determining whether the hawk can eat it or not based on what size it is and things like that. So I do think that while the theme might not speak to you, I think it's worked into the game really, really well. The mechanics make sense.
Understood. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I appreciate that point out.
And how certain birds, because of the bird it is, it doesn't have its own nest, but the power is it can go and lay an egg in another nest and things like that. To me, it's interesting the way they work the theme, though, into the mechanics of the game.
I think your point gives me a little more appreciation for the like either the designers or the people who came up with this game, because that's a lot of information that they put out there. So
yeah, I think if you go and you have the app, I think they have every bird sound, like each of the individual birds sounds is on the app.
Yeah, I have it on Steam. I have Wingspan on Steam. I've played a lot on Steam. And yeah, if you've got a certain, you play a hawk, you're going to hear a hawk, right? You play an owl, you're going to hear an owl as you're playing the game. So
that's hilarious. But wait, is the app just for Wingspan?
Yeah.
It's its own app?
Yeah.
That's wild. What else? What else, guys? What else gives you a little bit of either?
I'll go with another frustration because I played this game a lot back in the day. And I just was never really good at it. So I will throw that as a caveat. But I feel like there's not a lot of good catch-up mechanisms in this game. So meaning like I'm playing against somebody and I have this person in my mind. And, you might have somebody that you play games with that if it's their favorite game, they know it inside and out. They know a lot of the bird combos. And so every time I would play this game with them, and I'm a competitive person when I come to the board game table, and I would just be looking at like cards and, they're comboing so many things. And I'm like, I can get one egg. And I'm like this turn, I just have like no combos working, and their efficiency with their engine, just because they know the cards so well, there's just no way for me after a certain point in time. It's not even like probably after like, halfway through the game. It's probably like a third through the game. I'm already out. I'm just kind of playing for my own score. Just because I'm so far behind, there's just no way I feel like sometimes I can catch back up. And I feel like for somebody that is really good at this game, I feel that there's like, we talked about quacks. At least they try to have a catch up mechanic. I don't know if there is one in this game. I think you just start falling further and further behind if you don't build your engine or you don't get the right cards. Maybe you're looking for a card that would make your engine run. You never see it. Maybe that's, you're bad in how you planned it. But at the same time, if there's certain cards I feel like that are very valuable, and I don't ever know sometimes what those cards are. Mm-hmm. So I end up passing them or I throw them out. And then somebody else will like, oh, you should have done that with this combo. And I just don't know the game that well. And so I feel like when I played this game a lot, I got beat like a drum. I mean, this is one of the games that is on my wall because I remember because I got beat so bad all the time. And I was so frustrated. I couldn't figure out any of the combos. And maybe I should have played it online more or something like that. But I just remember I just would fall so far behind so early and I could just never catch up. And I just felt like, that's one of the things I see with this game is that the experience level, if somebody's just way more experienced, I feel like, my shot of winning isn't very good. But you play games to have fun,
and that goes back to what you're talking about earlier, that if you're playing with someone where there's a decent amount of luck in here, but there's also, you got to know the right combinations. And if you know them and you find them, they can be really powerful. on the app, or at least in Board Game Arena, you can click an option where it says don't use powerful cards or something like that, to where there are certain cards that are known, okay, that's a really powerful card, especially if you know how to use it, and you can just eliminate them from the game when you play, which maybe gets rid of some of that. You were also touching on no catch-up mechanism, and I agree. I can't think of a catch-up mechanism in Wingspan, and I think some people are going to view that as a good thing, and some people not so much, because I know one view of catch-up mechanisms is, okay, no matter how well I play, they're always going to have a chance to always be in the game, so to speak. And I think it depends on what level you're playing Wingspan, and I don't know that Wingspan is a gateway game, but it's not really a hardcore game either. It's somewhere in between, where whether or not you want that catch-up mechanism may depend, okay, which way are you playing this and with whom?
Yeah. And I think that builds on one of my frustrations of the end, and even the last round, I think is a pinch point. Because you're not doing certain actions in that. You're not generally going to go get food. You're basically in the last round just laying eggs, right? So
I think that's a pretty common comment on Wingspan, that the last couple of terms can just be, depending on what you got. Sometimes you can set yourself up, but a lot of times it's just, I'm gonna set myself up for the maximum egg lay.
And hope that that's part of maybe one of the goal cards in the end or something. But I kind of found that I had a couple things set up last time we played, and I was like really looking forward to getting another couple cards, but like someone was getting ready to end it, and it was, I don't know. I remember being like, I can't do what I wanted to do, or plant this bird or hatch this bird or whatever I'm doing to a bird, and put this bird in a cage. It was, the last round frustrated me, so that was a frustration of mine for sure. I also will say this is a small beef, but it annoys me because of the design on our player mats. That top row where you can take the action of the top row to play a bird.
Yeah.
That doesn't even look like a row or an action. And every time we were playing, I was like, okay, when I want to play a bird, what am I doing? You're like, the top row. It just
this big. It doesn't need much.
But it's like, I understand that, but it's like in half an inch, and every other little section that you go to is like 4 inches. So I don't know, small little beef on that. Just even that out.
But what's up there where they tell you to do that is the number of eggs that you need to pay. And so there's a reason it's up there, but I guess you're saying make it a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
right?
Make it a little bit bigger so it looks like an action. Yeah. It just looks like a random thing that correlates to each column. So I don't know. Small beef, but
no, I get what you're saying. I think sometimes I feel like based off the cards I get, my options in this game sometimes are limited. Like I remember thinking about sometimes, okay, it's my turn. I don't like any of the things I could actually do. And I get kind of stuck based off what other people had done, or maybe what they took in the bird feeder. Again, going back to my bird feeder complaint, they took the food I needed. Now I just have to waste a turn, taking food I really don't want, and I have no birds that are in my hand that could use it. So I feel like sometimes I do have a lot of, I call them empty turns, but like turns that I basically am doing something, but it's not really benefiting me.
I certainly felt that. I think part of that is, how do you set yourself up to where you can have a fruitful turn, but there's only so much you can do. And so you can find yourself in that situation anyway. Or you need, like you were talking earlier, you need a certain food, and there's 4 different types of food in that bird feeder. It ain't getting reset for a while. Things like that can be frustrating.
All right, awesome. Any other just frustrations or anything overall that anybody wanted to touch on? I
don't have any frustrations. One other comment I'll make, though, is I think this game lends itself really well to being able to bling it out yourself. So I like to print things, 3D print things for games. Right. And there's a lot of things out there. Again, you don't have to create them yourself. They're out there on Thingiverse, and I printed some birdhouses instead of the cubes to bling it out, and a few other things. So not all of them work real well, but some of them work really well, and this is a game that you can really bling the heck out of it.
Well, and this is a game, I guess, too, in my last point, which is, I guess, open for discussion, and I know, Chris, you've played this a ton of times, but what do you guys feel about the player interaction on this game? Because I feel it's a little like...
I wrote that down as kind of a negative. I forgot to bring it up, but I guess my comment would be that the main player interaction is, are you done yet?
Yeah, exactly. Or whose turn is it? Or like, again, we're laughing at the cards, right? Yeah. But there's nothing that I'm looking at going, I know Chris needs that card. I'm going to go take that from him. Like, I wouldn't know that looking at the 3 that are out there in the tray going, oh, Chris is... like looking to do that. I have no clue what you're doing on your board really, or where you're going. I know what the goal card is for everybody, but there's something to me, there's something that's a little amiss as far as, I'm not trying to be cutthroat at playing Wingspan, but like the player interaction, or maybe, snatching birds out or something. Like there should be like a predatory part of this game where, I don't know, kill someone's bird.
You want some
cats in this
or something
game?
like that.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
So,
it's interesting. I did write that down, and any player interaction is certainly passive or very indirect. I might have done some hate drafting when we were playing, just from the standpoint of looking at the food and knowing that you want to reset, for example, and so maybe I won't take that action, or I'll take one of the ones that doesn't help you out in getting it reset.
No, and that's a good point. I think there was, like you said, a little bit of hate drafting, but for me, it was the food in the bird feeder, taking food I knew other people wanted, or were like waiting for them to come out. So yeah, okay, awesome. I think that's a great discussion. I appreciate everybody's input. If you guys have any other comments who's listening, please let us know. But let's take it over to the collector's corner. David, what do you got for us on Wingspan?
Yeah, so right now you can buy Wingspan. Wingspan's pretty available. I mean, if you haven't seen it in your local store, you probably should get out more. But like right now, it's going on Amazon for $43.86 at the time of this broadcast. Also at Target, it's going for $43.99. So you can get this game at a relatively, right around that $40-$45 price point. I would say in the used market, it's going anywhere between $25-$30. Maybe if you get somebody that really hates this game, you can, get it for cheaper. The only difference is I think the games that are coming out now versus games that were released in the past. So if you get an older version of the game, I think some of the components are different, because I think maybe Chris said, I think
the older ones might be better. I actually got my copy brand new for $20. It was when Walmart was having one of their sales. Like, holy crap, I got to buy that. And then I got home and it's like every bag when I opened it just destroyed it. And so it tore rather than the Ziploc coming out. It was just really kind of cheap stuff. I felt like the eggs were a little cheaper than what I expected them to be. But in the end, I put them in my own bags and it still looks great. But I feel like, maybe the quality's a little bit down.
Yeah, so I would recommend, I think that could be true actually too. So, if you find an older copy of the game, it actually might be the better purchase on this one, but doesn't take away the availability. This game's pretty widely available at this point in time. So, you could go out and buy it. I would say a good deal. Look for those deals. This game's almost always on sale in combination with something like a buy one, get one half off or something. So wait for that kind of deal if you're really looking at it. But I would probably pay around $30 for this game if it's new, in my opinion. I think you get a deal on it like Chris did for $20.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Thanks for that, David. So I guess going off of our personalities and kind of the different names that we've taken on, I guess for me as the goofy noob, what are my final thoughts on Wingspan? And I guess I'd have to say, try this game out. I would definitely be open to it. Sit down and learn it, especially if you're looking to do engine building. It is a fun game. There's not too much on the cards where you're overwhelmed. It's a good intro game. Again, like Chris had said, it's not a beginner game. It's not a hard weighted game or anything like that, but it's just a little bit above that mid game range. Try it. Be open to it. I certainly think that it's a good thing to try for a new person. So I'm all for this game if you're interested in this type of mechanism. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I really like this game. I've only played it a few times actually on the table, but I mentioned earlier I have it on Steam. I've played it well over 100 times on Steam, typically against some pretty good AIs. But even when you're playing at the table, again, as the introvert, you don't have to do anything crazy. You don't have to be super outgoing, but you can be. You can interact to the level that you want to. And as the intellectual side of me, I do think there are combinations you can seek out. There are things that you can plan for, but you don't have to sit there and rack your brain to do them. I think it's the right level for what I'd say is maybe a semi-casual night, to where I want to do some thinking, but I don't want to sit there and feel like I'm working.
Yeah, no, I agree. And David, how about you as the collector? What are you thinking about this game overall?
I mean, overall, I think it's one of the gateway games that a lot of people get into the hobby with. It's an easy game, to bring people in. As far as like owning it, I don't know necessarily if you need to own it if you're a collector like me. I think that, it's more of a game that is, kind of like our Monopoly of kind of the modern board gaming world. I think, most people that are into modern board games have a copy of this, or, they've gone through this game. But I think it's, I think it's good for what it is. I'm trying to think, it says 1 to 5 players on the box. I'm thinking about all the times I play it. I think personally, if I'm playing this game, I'd probably play with 3 players, just because I think sometimes it tends to go a little bit long, just because you're sitting there, you're kind of waiting. And a lot of the games I've been playing a lot more simultaneous play. So I'm always doing something. So I feel like, in that respect, I, maybe showing its age a little bit, but overall, a really good game. I haven't played the expansion, so I think maybe there's some stuff out there that has changed, the core mechanisms and kind of, modernized it a little bit more, but I don't know.
You're definitely going to get blasted for calling that the Monopoly of.
I do want to jump in though, and you mentioned something about player count, and I do want to maybe jump on top of that and say, I think it's an interesting with Wingspan. I'm not sure what the sweet spot is, because when you're playing with 5 players, I think that's when you really get, if you've got those cards that are activated when someone else does something or vice versa, you get a lot more of that, obviously, the more players you have. And so there's a lot more of that part of the game, and you can score a lot more points, and it's more fun. But then you're waiting much longer for your turn. If you get your turns every other one, because you're playing 2-player game, you're not seeing as much of that. So I agree, the sweet spot's probably 3 or 4, and it's a balance. The more people you get, the more action you get, and the longer you take between turns. So that was a great point.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, it's starting to feel a little bit like an Alfred Hitchcock movie up in here. So let's go take a short break. And as we hike back to civilization, we'll prepare to talk about Earth.
Earth is a 1 to 5 player card-driven engine-building game that empowers you to build your own island comprised of a vast array of flora and terrain designed to match your climate. During setup, each player chooses an island card, a climate card, and an ecosystem card. These are unique to each player and individualize their starting resources, ongoing abilities, and game-end bonuses. 4 fauna cards are also drawn, which provide in-game bonuses that all players compete for. On your turn, there are 4 different actions available to you. Composting allows you to gain soil and transfer cards into your compost pile. Planting allows you to pay soil to add up to 2 cards from your hand to your island, which is a 4x4 tableau of flora and terrain cards. Watering allows you to place sprout cubes onto cards in your tableau and to again gain soil. And growing affords you the right to draw additional cards into your hand while also adding towering growth tokens to your island. The non-active players then take a weaker version of that same action, after which all players activate those cards in their tableau that are triggered by the chosen action. Players may also play event cards, benefiting their island, but often at a cost. Play continues in this manner until one of the islands reaches its maximum size of 16 cards, at which point the game end is triggered. Players earn points from the cards in their island, from sprouts and growth on those cards, from composted cards, from the in-game fauna bonuses, and from game end bonuses on their ecosystem card or within their island tableau. The player with the most points is the best player on Earth, or at least for that particular game of Earth. Earth was designed by Maxime Tardif and was published in 2023 by Inside Up Games.
All right, Chris, thanks for that summary. That was great. So there are a lot of things in this game that you can do, and there's a lot of different components, cards, things to learn. But let's start off again, as we always do, with some of the things that really hit home for us. What are the things that we really like about this game? David, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm going to start off with, I think, the obvious one on the table, but it's that simultaneous play that you get when somebody selects an action. I get to take an action as well. It's a weaker action of that same action, but I get to do something. So, to me, I always like being able to do something while somebody else is taking their main turn, and I feel like this game does that well. I feel like there's never a moment where I'm just sitting there. In fact, I think it might do it too well, where I kind of want there to be a greater pause in this game, because I always feel like when I'm playing this game, I'm flying through, trying to go as fast as I can, because I feel like other people are, doing the same thing. I don't want people to wait on me, but I feel like with this game, I'm always just constantly doing something. I almost wish there was halfway through the game, 5-minute break, just so I can catch my breath and figure out what I'm doing, because it's a fast and furious, I feel like, when I play this game.
Yeah, earthquake or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Let's stop.
Natural disaster.
Exactly.
Yeah. I agree with that, David. I think, when your engine hits because you're playing each of those colors at the top right, and you're going through and you're doing everything like that, that's really fun. It's like jackpot, like every single time that somebody goes to the color that you want them to go to.
Oh, yes.
I had the down as one of my favorite parts of this game too.
Yeah, or they go to the red action and you have like one red card. And you're watching everybody do tons of stuff.
Yeah, you just grew your whole
What color does Chris not have? Okay, red, I'm going red.
Maybe that's what
perfect.
Good hate drafting mechanism on that one.
It was interesting when you were talking about the strong action and the weak action. I was remembering that I was actually using the idea that, hey, I'm going to get to do things on other people's turns, and looking at your tableau and Daniela's tableau and saying, what do I think you're going to do? I don't have to take the grow action. I'm going to get to do that probably on David's turn. Or I got to do this now because I don't think anyone's going to do it, and I need to be able to do something else later on. So I really like that action and that aspect of maybe a little bit of prediction, trying to say, okay, what do I take a little chance on what someone else is going to do and see if it works out.
No, that's good. I like that.
Another part that I think that another obvious part of the game is I think it's got pretty good table presence, although it's an interesting mix. Some of the pieces are really good, and the sprouts are just cubes, but then the growth things are these towering trees and growths like that, which tend to look pretty cool on the table. as long as you're playing on a table that doesn't get bumped,
Right.
or something like that. But I think those components, is certainly certain components, are actually really nice in the game.
Yeah, I think, again, there's so much to explore in this game that I don't think we'll hit everything, but even from the end goal card that is on the table, actually, I shouldn't say end game, because you can hit that whenever throughout the game. That was really interesting as we were playing that last time. There were some that in each of us were hitting, some of them that we weren't hitting. And so I like that piece of it. Again, the simultaneous play that we're all playing, but we're playing a kind of different game, but we're kind of looking at what other people are doing. It's just a really fun thing to watch as everybody starts to build out their maps, or it's 16 cards as a 4x4. So it's just really, I don't know, the engine on this is just so unique to me. And I think the tokens are very cool. And even though you say the green cubes are just cubes, they do fit really nicely on the cards, and you know what the space on the card is for. But there's dirt. There's just, I don't know, there's just a lot to this game. I think it's really interesting to explore.
Yeah, I mean, if you like a game with options, I think this is a game that you will enjoy. I feel like there are so many different options and paths that you can go on. It's hard for my brain sometimes to comprehend it when I'm doing it. To the way you lay out your grid. When you're placing a card, plant, in your earth or your section of the board. There's so many options about where you're going to place the next one and how are you going to do that, because you're building out this 4x4 grid, and you can kind of put them in any kind of order you want. You just have to build off of each other. So instead of just being, orthogonally, like most games, you can go diagonal as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's really, I can look over at Chris's board and I'm like, wow, he's doing something crazy over there. And my board's crazy. Plus all the different cards you can get. I think the options start even right at the setup. Where you get you get so many options. You always get like 2 of something, and you pick one, and that kind of starts you down a path. And then how many cards do I want to keep? Do I want to compost certain cards right away? The options and the variability, just even from the get go, I feel like is very high. To the point where sometimes I'm like, oh, I love options, but there's a lot here.
There are a lot of options. The nice thing is you can cycle through cards really fast too. If you need a certain type of cards, there are mechanisms you can use in this game to just cycle through a bunch of cards, as opposed to, we were talking about Wingspan earlier, and if it comes up, it comes up. If not, oh well. You can go digging and you can go searching. You got to use some turns to do it, but there is an opportunity to get through what is a massive amount of cards in this game.
And I appreciate the key at the bottom of the player boards, the individual ones that we have, because you need all of those icons to know what everything is like. Because then half the time you're thinking, okay, if I compost, what is compost? What is it going to get me at the end of the game? But they have the portion down there where it says the end game goals and stuff as well. So that was really important, really key, like when you're playing that. So I'm grateful that that's on there.
So another positive I have about this game is that, most of the cards in this game, I feel like you can use them in a variety of different ways. And like, there's always something, like they're always more than just like, oh, this is a mushroom. It's like a mushroom, but it also, grows in like a winter climate, so maybe you don't want it necessarily for the mushroom, but maybe it has other attributes that are on that card that make it valuable to you. And I feel like almost every card in this game has things on it where, you could use it for its primary reason, but sometimes I'm like, oh, it's got a sun on it. I need another sun because my scoring criteria says if I have 9 cards with suns, I get 15 points. So I might not even sometimes play it in my tableau for the card itself, but more for all the different characteristics that are on it. So I feel like each card in this game has more options than other games of the same type, that, the card is like, oh, I have, like a Wingspan. Oh, I have this bird, but it only has this sort of nest, and I don't know. I just think that each card has a lot more variety in what you can do with it. It's more versatile.
Yeah, sometimes you're not looking at the actual plant, right? You're looking at it's a tree, and that's what I need. I need trees in this row to get me this point to activate this next thing that I need, and that's going to give you like a majority of points, or help you grow, or give you dirt, or whatever you need for that row as you fill it out. So again, tons of options with that, and you can choose. I think I counted on the one. There are 17 different things on the cards that you can like look at and do, which is a lot of information, but that's options.
Yeah.
I think it's options. It also, for me, and I'm a guy, we established a while back, I like them heavy. Right, but with I think I also said with limits, and I think there's a lot here.
With limits,
I like them heavy with limits. So, but I often, when I'm playing this game, feel like there's just one or two too many things that I'm trying to balance. And again, even though I like them heavy, it's maybe a little bit too much. And I'm always missing something, or, I forgot about this, I forgot about that. Just one or two, and I don't think it's that much more, but it's just always just one or two things that I was like, that's just too much for me to do. And still have fun at a game as opposed to work.
Yeah. And I think that probably takes us into our frustrations, because that is one thing that I wrote down, even though you have options, right? 17 different little options on a card. They're not all on there on every single card, but that's a lot to manage in your hand when you're trying to think of, what do I want to do with this card? Do I want to compost it? Do I want to keep it? Do I want to put it in my tableau? Like, what do I really want to do with this? And to me, there was a lot of confusion, having only played this stuff a handful of times, but there was a lot of confusion on, all right, what does that card mean? Because I think even in the end, all right, which one number are we using for the points, and which number means I got to build it this high? And it's not hard, right? It's not hard to learn those things, but it's a lot. There's suns on them. I think at one point, there was something that was like a wild, and I didn't know it was a wild. I was so angry. Like, I was like, I could have learned this like 14 rounds ago. So, again, it's a lot. I agree with you, Chris, on that.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even talking about the events cards. You could just play it anytime you want, too. I know the last game that we had played together, I think I looked down and I was the only one that played an event card, because maybe you guys were too involved in, all the other plant cards that are in your hand. I also think that I love options, kind of like Chris was saying, too. He loves options. I love options. But when you got like 30 cards in your hand, I mean, there was a point where, I don't say this about a lot of games because I like playing the physical copy, but I actually think this game plays better on like Board Game Arena, because I can sort my cards more easy. I mean, there was times where I had so many cards in my hand, I couldn't actually sort them so that I was efficient with anything. And then you guys are just going through your turns like crazy. So I'm always having to do, a turn when you take a turn. So I'm always just constantly being like, well, I guess I don't need this, but you can't really min max in this game. So if you're a player that does that, this game is going to really kind of blow your mind, because I don't feel like there's a way you can do that. You just kind of have to pick a route and just say, I hope this scores me more points than the other route. And I find myself doing that a lot in this game, where I actually don't know like 3 steps ahead what I'm doing. I'm almost into like, hey, I can do this, and I hope this is the better path. But I just
and even during play though, David, there was a couple times that you were like, I knew what I wanted to do, but I don't know what I did with those cards. Or, and you had a couple different piles.
So
you were like,
cards.
Were these the cards that I wanted to use, or were those the cards? And then I can sense that frustration, because it's like, you have like a handful of cards, and you're like, all right, if I play this one, but it goes with that, end game, but if it goes with that bonus point, like there's like a lot to do, and it's a lot. Yeah, you almost need like a little like a Scrabble thing in front of you to hold your cards like in front of you, and so you can kind of move them around.
The game
can you 3D print those for us?
Actually, I can. So, the game kind of acknowledges that in the rule book. It says, hey, if you have cards that you want to compost eventually, just turn them backwards in your hand, and that way they don't get in your way. It actually says that in the rule book, so they're acknowledging that's there.
Yeah.
I'm glad one of us reads the rule book. That's great, Chris. Thank you for that.
Well, usually it's because I'm okay, something ain't working here. It's got to be the rules.
Yeah.
One of the things that every time we play the actual copy of this game, I look at the growth tokens or the growth pieces, and I say, man, that's really, really cool. And then you try to stack them up. And I had the giant redwood in the last game we played. You're supposed to stack 8 things high, and you can't get them 8 high. It's going to fall. And so, yeah, it's really awesome, but they don't stack that well. And it gets a little top heavy.
Yeah.
And so my giant redwood was actually 2 halves of a redwood, because so it wasn't as cool as it should have been.
Yeah.
There's a joke in there somewhere. I can see you trying to.
Logging.
I mean, I think that's one of the negatives I have too, is like there's certain pieces that are really good quality, kind of Chris was alluding to earlier in our positives, but then there's other stuff where I'm using the soil almost constantly, and those are just cardboard chits, and I feel like they should have reversed it. I would have preferred having those be made of wood, and I know there's a deluxe version being made right now in Kickstarter that they're kind of doing that with, but I feel like that textile, nature of things that you're interacting with all the time, if that was just a little bit upgraded, it would have made, a big difference in, I think, the way that I perceive this game still, because I'm always using that soil. It's coming in and out of your hand like crazy, and it just doesn't feel good when you're doing it. It just feels cheap.
It feels like money. It feels very transactional when you're taking it and you're just throwing it in the pile, then you're grabbing it back. It's not really, it doesn't, it's not
doesn't
really
even feel
thematic
good when you do it. Yeah. The piece is just, maybe because we're spoiled now as board gamers, we use metal coins everywhere. But just
from Egypt,
right. It could be, but a lot of those actions, you're doing something. You're either taking soil or you're paying it, or potentially both, depending on it. And there is a lot of actions there, and Yeah, and it's just the simplest, most basic piece that you can have. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I found when I'm playing this game, but maybe it's because you were talking about with Wingspan, you're just not that good at it. I don't feel like I'm that good at this game. but I do feel like, though, when we're playing Wingspan, the scores are usually close. And when we're playing Earth, I feel like it never is. And maybe part of that's because the range is so much higher. You're in the 200-something range as opposed to somewhere around 100 in Wingspan. But it always feels like someone got the right engine going, or they're not close. And I see, Danielle, you're looking up some numbers.
Yeah.
There's some really big gaps in the
drastic.
scores.
Yeah, I think I ended at 179, and the next closest was 145. So, but there is a lot in there that I want to do, and I just don't feel like I can ever accomplish what I need to do. I saw, last time we were playing, I think you guys were just both trying to fill up your boards as much as we could.
Last game went fast. Game went fast. Yeah. I think I had a power that allowed me to get dirt. I often feel when I'm playing this game, it's like, how the heck am I supposed to get dirt? How can I get dirt? And I had a power. It might have been one of my starting powers that every time you do X, you also get dirt. And then I had another card that allowed me to give something up that I got a lot of to get dirt. Mm-hmm. And that completely changed the game and allowed me to do what you just talked about, which is, I'm playing cards a lot faster than I otherwise would because I actually have cards or I actually have dirt.
Yeah. All right, David, take us to the collector's corner on this game.
Yeah, so right now, this game is pretty widely available. You can go out and you can buy it on Amazon right now. It's going for $39 on Amazon. On Target, it's going for $49.99, so about $50. And then the secondhand market, you're finding this game right now anywhere between $25 and $30. And for what you get, there's a lot of stuff in this game. For the price point, it came out in 2023. I think it's a good price point. It's... we're comparing it to Wingspan right now. They are right around the same price point. This is going to be a good battle that we're coming into because there's a lot of things on these two, about these two games. Earth was designed later, and I think they had some of the concept of what Wingspan did and tried to expand upon it. So it's going to be an interesting battle when we get into it. But, even as far as price goes, they're very comparable even on the market today.
How does the Kickstarter come into play there with respect to potential availability? Is it just an expansion or is it a whole new game? Do you know?
I don't know too much about the Kickstarter. I know that I think the components are getting upgraded, and there might be an expansion. I think with that as well. Mm-hmm. But okay. Yeah,
you're going that's Middle Earth. Go terraform another planet or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess as final thoughts then, David, we'll start with you. As the collector, what do you think about this game?
To me, I do enjoy playing this game. I'm always somebody who loves options. For this game in particular, I think it has a little bit too many options. There's always just crazy stuff. Every time we were talking about the score earlier, there's always like gold cards out there that are public gold cards. And half the time I don't even recognize if I get them or not because I have so many other gold cards in my hand or something like that. I think when we were going through the end of the game last time, there's these two corporate gold cards on the side that we're not racing to. And I think I got points on it just because I got lucky. I didn't even know I did that. And I was just like, oh, that was the goal. That's how many options you have when you play this game. And on one hand, it's really good. On the other hand, this is why I like to play it on BGA because, it can keep track of things for me and it can tell me, hey, you've hit these different things and I don't have to manually process it. I think there's a lot to process when I play Earth, which is a good thing and a bad thing potentially. But yeah, it's like all the reasons why I like it are some of the reasons why I don't like it. It's a weird kind of game I'm reviewing today.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that because there is some things on BGA where you're like, it calculates it for you, but I'm personally a person who I want to see it on the table, I want it built out, and I want to see the little growth, and I want to see all that stacked up in it because it looks really cool when it's done and built. But
I agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. I get what you're saying. So I guess for me as the new person, the noob, I would say play this game and try it, but don't worry about the end goal cards. Don't worry about trying to do some of that other stuff that's out there. Even on your own player boards, there's a couple things that you're going to have in front of you that are goal cards as well. Just take the cards, try and grow them, make your square, keep it very simple for yourself as a new person. Don't worry about the end game points. Don't worry about where you're going to land on this. Take the cards, learn them, understand the iconography on that, and just have fun with it. And then the more you play it, the more you're going to realize how the engine works, how to build, how to get the end game points. One of the end game points we had last time was 4 cards in the 4 corners of your tableau. That's a very simple thing to do to get points. So maybe you can start start there and start learning and things like that. But yeah, I would say try it, play it. It's I really love this game. I think it's fun. There's a lot to it. Just take it easy. Take it one bite at a time. How about you, Chris, as the intellectual introvert?
Yeah, I want to start with a question for the noob. Okay. So I guess
Ask me.
one thought I'm having here is that if you're coming in and you're playing this as a noob, I agree you can do it, but I feel like if you're coming in as a noob, don't expect to win it.
No, absolutely not.
Do it for the experience and recognize you're probably going to lose.
Yeah, and that's why I said don't worry about your points. Don't worry about trying to get anything. Don't even try to worry about getting on the map. Take the cards, take them in your hand, learn them, understand what they mean, use your little cheat sheets that you have, and take one bite at a time. Because you'll have, I do think you'll have fun playing this game.
Yeah. Now, as far as me, I like this game. I don't love it. I do like it. I think, David, you touched, there's so many things. There's also so many idiosyncrasies of the rules. I feel like, though, if it's a game that you're playing a lot, those start to become second nature, and it becomes easier to be able to manage all of those different things because you're not thinking about, all right, what does this symbol mean again, and how do I do it, and all of that. It becomes second nature, and your mind is opened up to be able to do more things. So I feel like if this is a game that you're playing a lot, you're going to have less trouble with that, just like any other game, I guess. For me, and for as much as we play it, it always tends to be just a little too much, and I feel like, okay, the game's almost playing me as opposed to me playing it. So
that's surprising me because I think you like some of these.
Yeah, I do. I just think that's why I said I think it's just one or two too many things that maybe don't always synergize. Yeah. And so it's just, okay, I got to do this, and here's this other totally different thing, and those just four things there. Little too much for me to actually enjoy it and be able to put it all together. I'm not going to turn it down. If someone says they want to play Earth, I'm going to play it.
You're never going to turn down the heavy ones.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. All right. Well, I feel like we've warmed the climate enough with all this hot air. So it's time to rotate onto our axis onto the next phase. So let's take a moment to watch a sunset, then eclipse it all with our Battle of the Funnest.
All right, everyone, the moment of truth has arrived. It's time to separate the men from the boys, or more appropriately, the games from the toys. We're going to put these two games head-to-head against each other in the ultimate face-off. In one corner, weighing in at 2.46 out of 5 with an overall BGG rating of 8.1. Hatched in 2019 on a wing and a prayer, taking flight and providing pleasing plumage to plenty of players, a molted menagerie of migratory madness, a fine flocking flight of fancy, the ornithologically outstanding Wingspan. In the other corner, weighing in at 2.88 out of 5 with an overall BGG rating of 7.7, born 4.5 billion years ago after a banger of a party, cycling through seasons at 67,000 miles per hour, the most pleasant planet ever to circle the sun, never soiled, always watered, an engine builder of continental proportions, Earth. And now let's find out which one is the last game standing in our Battle of the Funnest Showdown. All right, guys, as a reminder of how this works, we're going to take our two games today, Wingspan and Earth, put them up against each other in 5 different categories: theme and production, mechanisms, value for your time, replayability, and the fun factor. We're each going to pick one over the other in each category. Whoever gets the most votes wins the category. Whoever wins the most category wins the entire Battle of the Funnest and takes the title. All right, we ready to go?
We're ready.
Let's go.
Wingspan versus Earth, theme and production. David, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so the theme and production, to me, this was a little bit easier than I thought it would be. When I look at the two games, I think Wingspan incorporates the theme. I think the productions are pretty even as far as that goes, but the theme and how it's incorporated into gameplay, kind of like Chris was alluding to earlier in the episode, the way that they do the measurements and everything with the hawks, being able to capture certain birds that are smaller, based off their actual wingspans in real life, hence the name Wingspan. But, to me, just the way they did all that, I think Wingspan has to take it for me on this one. So I'm going with Wingspan on theme and production. To Daniela.
I actually think the same thing, but opposite. I think Earth is so much more interesting to me to see the growth and have your cards in front of you and see things grow, and everything is labeled, whether it's a tree or a mushroom or something. So I'm going to go with Earth on this theme and production for me. And Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Wingspan here for primarily the reasons that David went over. I just think the theme, it works so well with the way it was done. I also want to recognize how broad the theme is with respect to bringing people into the hobby, and it did a really great job. The production does that as well. I have to go with Wingspan on that one. Wingspan over Earth 2-1. in the category of theme and production, taking the first one. We'll go to mechanisms now. Daniela, I'll start with you.
All right, so I think as an overall engine builder, if that's what we're looking at, Earth has a little bit too much for that. We were just kind of talking about the cards and managing it all. I think Wingspan is a better hand management engine building for us as I'm sorry, I shouldn't say us, for me, as I'm going through the game. So I'm going to give this one to Wingspan.
Yeah, for me on the mechanisms, I have to go with Earth on this one. I think the simultaneous play, as far as like somebody takes an action and I get to do something while they're doing whatever their main action is, to me that always sells me on a game. I feel like when I play Wingspan, there's just too much downtime in between my turns. I like it a little bit more snappy, so that's just me. But as far as mechanisms go, I do feel like that gives Earth a little bit of an edge. I think if Wingspan had something like that, I'd probably be more willing to play it all the time. But alas. To Chris.
Yeah, I feel like we're ganging up on Daniela, especially because I was going to go with Wingspan until David. Yeah, but David made a point, and it won me over. David, you talked about simultaneous play, and that's what got me where I made a comment about Wingspan and how there's a lot of downtime in between your turns, and while the mechanism I think really work really well on both of these, that swayed me. So I'm going to have to go with Earth on this one, which means Earth takes it. And Daniela's off to the side crying on this one, but it is 1-1 now. Earth and Wingspan. Value for your time. I'm going to start on this one. I'm going to go with Wingspan. I feel like Wingspan can go relatively quickly if everybody knows what they're doing. I know we're talking about games on the table. When I play this online, it can go really fast as opposed to Earth. But I feel like Earth, even though there's a lot of simultaneous play, I always feel like that game's long. Wingspan to me is the right speed. So I'm going to go with Wingspan. I'll kick it over to David.
Oh, value for time. This is a tough one for me. I'm going to have to go with Earth. The only thing I can think in the back of my head is the bird feeder in Wingspan. It just annoys me for value for my time. I'm like, I'm always just stuck there. So, at Earth, at least I'm doing something. I can get over that roadblock. There's nothing really in my way. And every time I play it, I do feel like I do get value for my time. As far as, the length of play and how much I get out of it. Maybe that's just because I'm constantly moving. It feels like you're getting a workout for your brain and your hands and your fingers while you're playing this game because they're constantly in motion. To Daniela.
This is hard for me because I actually think both are too long. And so David came back to his mic to laugh, just so you guys know. I do think they're both about 15, 20 minutes too long for what they are. So when I'm playing, though, I do agree with David that when you're constantly moving and you're constantly making plays and you're going through, hey, Chris chose something in Earth in a certain color and then everybody gets to kind of do something as well. I really like that aspect of that where I'm not feeling the drag. So I'm going to go with Earth on this one. And we just did a spinning back fist to Chris.
All right, so David and Daniela both got it wrong and voted for Earth, which means Earth takes it over Wingspan for value for your time and takes a 2-1 lead over Wingspan. But we're going to replayability now, coming to David.
I'm gonna have to go with Earth on this one for replayability. There's so much in this game that I still don't know what's going on, and I would want to explore. With Wingspan, I feel like I played it enough. I'm just not good at it. So maybe that's what's going for me on this one, on replayability. I feel like I still have room for improvement on Earth, where Wingspan, I just can't find my groove there. And so I don't really want to replay it anymore just because I'm getting beat down. So with that said, I'm going with Earth on replayability. I'm going to send it off to Chris.
Yeah, I'm sitting here wondering, what do I really think of as replayability? And if I look at it and say, well, which one have I played over and over and over again? It's one answer. If I look and say, but which one is different? I think every time you play it, it's another. So the first is Wingspan, the second is Earth. So I guess it depends on how you want to define replayability. I think it can go either way. And since I've played Wingspan more often, I'm going with Wingspan, and I'll kick it to Daniela.
How many times have you played Wingspan, Chris, just for the record?
On Steam, it's like 120 or something like that.
Yeah, definitely Wingspan. That's for you.
Bro. That's crazy. I do think that both of the games, I will say, are enjoyable. But if we're going based on a little, and I don't want to make this a replayability based on theme. For me, this is going to, because I don't like the Wingspan bird thing, whatever's going on there. Replayability for me as a new person is a lot about how involved am I getting and for me, is there more to discover? And that's kind of where I'm going to take my vote for this. And for me, that is Earth. I feel like even though I can still learn more about Wingspan and the cards and the birds and how to play a little bit differently, I feel I'm almost there to where that might be a little tapped out. Earth to me has quite a bit different types of building and engine and all the cards. I don't think we've ever gotten through a stack of cards. So I'm going to go with Earth.
All right, so David and Daniela get it wrong again. Earth wins that one. We go on to our last category, the fun factor. I'm going to go first here. Ain't nothing funnier than when the booby or the titmouse comes. I'm going there. It's Wingspan. Daniela.
All day, it's going to be Earth for me. Just as far as the fun factor, I know we have a little bit of some of the mechanisms as far as Earth, I should say the components, sorry, not the mechanisms, here with Earth are a little bit goofy, a little wobbly. We want a little better quality. And Earth or Wingspan does look really beautiful laid out. But I think fun wise, the interactions and I don't disagree with you, Chris. I think the bird cards are hilarious and we always laugh about that. But I'm trying to play Earth and I'm trying to get the most shrooms I can. So how about you, David?
Yeah, sometimes in life, you need a good foundation to build off of. And I think that's what Earth does here. Earth just, I feel like, takes Wingspan, takes the good parts of it, and then does something else with it, with simultaneous play involved, and kind of takes it to that next level for me. So on fun factor, I'm going to have to go with Earth on this one. I think it did what it does well, and I think it has Wingspan to thank for it. I think that, when they produced this game, they took a lot of the great ideas from Wingspan and expanded upon them and made them into such a way where people weren't sitting around. And I think that was one of their main motivations when they made this game as well, is that there's just more of that. But, you don't see as much player interaction in both of these games, so if that's something you're looking for. But as far as, just doing your own thing, kind of in your own silo, Earth is going to get the edge for me on this one.
All right, so Earth takes it over Wingspan, and the fun factor wins the last four after a quick start by Wingspan. Earth takes it over. Wingspan needs to get the flock out of here. Earth has a planetary win and takes the battle of the funnest.
All right, everybody, thank you for joining us on this episode of The Fifth Meeple. We hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave a comment, write us a review, engage with us. We'd love to talk to you. Out.
Happy Earth Day.
See ya.
Earth is the 2023 game of the year.
Yeah,
so
everybody's...
Was it? Earth
yeah,
was?
Earth is just tearing up the award scene right now, 2023.
They are to the game of the year what the Fifth Meeple is going to be in the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, after that, sorry.
Well done.
I can't stop laughing.
Wingspan is a... Shoot, I'll start over already.
Oh, you're mocking me earlier.
Allow him to take a break while I smack Danielle.
Fart.
My apologies if a snot bubble just starts to grow. There's something else. What is there? Yeah. Looks like no one's going to say anything dumb. So I'm going to stop recording.
Did.
Oh.